7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today to celebrate our 100th episode. My name is TJ Zwarich, editor-in-chief of agentsofandom.com. 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, October 21st, 2021, we dropped our very first podcast episode ever. We were 3 idiots working for a company surrounded by a bunch of assholes who had no idea what they were doing, started to say, let's try and do this shit ourselves. We turned a podcast into a website. Now we're 4 assholes on a podcast, 4 idiots on a podcast. We're not assholes, we're really nice people. 4 idiots on a podcast, and not only do we have this great website, but we have a unbelievable team that has built the Agents of Fandom up to be something we only dreamed of being a possibility. So thankful for all of you who have been here along this 100 episode journey with us, because more important than all of it, this journey has allowed me to make some of the closest friends in my entire life. And so I want to thank you all for coming along this journey with us. One of those closest friends in my entire life was one of the groomsmen at my wedding, joining us back for the second week in a row. Garrett Blaney, how you doing, my man?
I'm great. I knew that this was a special event, and given our history and everything that we've been through, especially driving to Canada, crossing the border, getting harassed about if I'm going to be cosplaying at your wedding. Yeah, it's there was no chance in hell that I was going to miss a special episode. While I don't know if I can add much more to your beautiful sentiment, I also would just like to thank you, Adam, Ruben, and the entire team for definitely some of the best 2 years of my life. Stressful, but great. A lot of growth, a lot of really great friendship, like you said, and we would be nowhere without the hard work of all the team. So thank you all. Thank you all of our listeners for joining with us along the way. We've had some pretty cool experiences, and hopefully the future will bring us more. So stay tuned, keep listening, and again, thank you guys for 100 episodes.
It's only going up from here, and one of the incredibly important people on this journey that's built us up to the level we are at today. He was so good, we had to add him to the podcast. Adam Blevins, how you doing this evening?
Oh, you flatter me too much, man. I'm doing okay. It's really, really great to be here to celebrate this big milestone with you guys. Obviously, I mean, I can't take as much credit as you guys for that, because you were doing this long before I got here. I think I'll take, instead of 12% of the credit, I'll take 25 to 26% of the credit. That's probably about how many episodes I've been on. But it's so exciting. And like Garrett said, although this is stressful, I've never once felt like a time in my life where the stress wasn't worth it. I've also met some of the best people that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. The best people, not some of, the best people that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. It's always so much fun to be here with you guys. And like, truth be told, I've had like a pretty rough couple of days, but then, I've been trying to remind myself, as everybody should, when you're going through something like this, it's temporary. These things are never permanent. Always keep moving forward, and then focus on the present. Be there, be now. And I'm so excited to be here with the 3 of you guys to talk about another awesome episode of Ahsoka. They're firing with this show, the big 100. Man, today couldn't be any better. Tonight couldn't be any better.
Ryan Cortero in chat, another people who has helped build the Agents of Fandom to a level that we could not have reached without him, by just absolutely taking our social platforms to another level. He says in chat, Mr. Blevins has come a long way from his TikTok lives, and it's true, Adam. You were never bad at this by any means. You always had a natural talent, but you have come a very long way as a writer, an editor, a leader, and a podcaster. So thankful to be on this journey with you, and the lucky guy who happened to be on the 100th episode here with us. Somebody I've actually known the longest of this group. I knew him before Agents of Fandom. The best hockey coach in all of Massachusetts, the most logical and reasonable Patriots fan you will ever find. our fellow Agents of Fandom, host of the Snipe and Selly podcast, Mark Pacelli. How are you doing?
What an introduction. My goodness. I'm doing great. I wish I was more dressed up for episode number 100 as opposed to literally just getting off the ice 30 minutes ago, skating a bunch of 12-year-olds. I'm happy to be here. I I remember when you and Garrett were like just doing your own thing when you just started up Agents of Fandom. We were in like a couple of Marvel chats. Those were horrible chats, but I got to meet you out of it, so that was the benefit there. But where this whole operation has gone since the last couple of years is absolutely incredible. So cheers to 100.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate that. And shout out to everybody in the chat here with us. This has been just so great. I'm going to be saying thank you a lot this episode, but I truly am so grateful to everyone who's been here with us. I said the date wrong the first time. It wasn't October 21st. That was our second episode. Episode 1 was October 14th with our very first guest ever being our friend from comicbook.com, Chris Killian. I want guesses. Adam, what's your guess? What was the topic of our very first podcast ever?
I don't even remember what I had for breakfast like yesterday. So I'm trying to think back to what was going on October 2 years ago. It wasn't Loki. It wasn't Marvel. I don't know. Maybe it was something Spider-Man related. Were you guys building up to No Way Home? Maybe. I mean, I feel like it was definitely Marvel. I'm definitely gonna plant my flag in something Marvel, but that's about as specific as I feel comfortable guessing.
Mark, I feel like I was probably sending you a DM of our very first podcast and being like, hey, even if you don't want to listen, make sure you subscribe. What do you think our very first topic was?
And I made sure to listen. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what it was about, though, because I can't remember what I had for breakfast. I remember I have to listen because I got to support my guy TJ. I would have been in Adam's camp there, like building up to No Way Home is kind of where I'd be guessing.
Garrett, you got any ideas?
I mean, I was there.
I was about to say, if he doesn't remember, then I get a pass.
I know my
he's on the
memory
show.
and your memory. I would not have remembered if I didn't look it up today.
It was, correct me if I'm wrong, something about Eternals?
We were prepping for Eternals, talking
Let's
about the last
go.
second news and teasers that dropped, the new Marvel shows incoming. We had an X-Men fan cast draft. So it's really funny because on
I knew
episode
the
100,
draft, for sure.
yeah, episode 100, it really brings it back to a lot of stuff for full circle because we're talking about X-Men fan casting with that. When that happens one day, when they're in the MCU, what'll that look like? And now we're finally getting our first tease with Kamala Khan, the Marvels coming out, being a mutant. Additionally, the other one is we were talking about Spider-Man 2 video game leaks. What might be included. And I think this was when we had heard the first, it was maybe a little bit before the very first trailer or maybe a little after the very first trailer. And we were catching wind that it might be Kraven involved. It might be Venom involved. And that was what we were talking about. And now, Spider-Man 2 finally coming. Adam, I know is your most anticipated game probably ever. We're all wildly excited for this one. So it's really nice. It's coming full circle. Shout out to Chris Killian, our first guest. Shout out to Ruben, who has edited 100 episodes now. He's gone through every single one of these, no days off. He's been, hopefully, still, I'm pushing him to teach me to do some of this so I can take a load off of his plate. But shout out to Ruben, who has been in the background since day one, but as integral to this team as anyone. So shout out to Ruben. But the real reason we're here is to talk about Ahsoka on Disney Plus. Episode 6 has now dropped. I absolutely adore this show. Before we get into episode 6, Mark, I want to throw it to you. What have you thought about this series as a whole? Because you, too, are a big fan of Star Wars animation, but you actually were so busy you didn't get to catch these as they were coming out.
I have been swamped traveling for work and other things. So I had been missing the first few episodes. So I literally binged the first 5 episodes last weekend, and episode 5 just blew me away. I think the only thing I put in the chat was like, I have questions about what just happened. And then this past episode that we'll get into, it the way that it pays tribute to Rebels and Clone Wars and some of these fantastic animated series, it's just very surreal to be able to see these things alluded to in live action. When we got Cad Bane back during Book of Boba Fett, which I did not like that series at all, but it was cool to see Cad Bane, and I'm like, oh wow, like seeing that animation translate into live action was so cool. So seeing this animated content translate over to live action in a series that I am actually really enjoying, that's really cool. I still have it a hair below, well, a little bit more than a hair below Andor. Andor is just the gold standard, but this Ahsoka series is far and away better than Book of Boba Fett. I also think it clears Obi-Wan Kenobi by a decent amount as well. So I'm very much enjoying Ahsoka.
Garrett, I want to throw it to you next. We can start talking spoilers. Spoiler warning for episode 6 of Ahsoka. What did you think about this episode? One that actually barely featured, speaking of Book of Boba Fett, not the same because it wasn't a totally different story. It was a continuation of the story that they're telling, but an episode with very little Ahsoka Tano.
I mean, it doesn't really bother me, to be honest. I guess it makes sense. There are other things with the episode that did bother me, but overall it was a great episode. I feel like there's a lot of things that were just like so quintessentially Star Wars that just made you feel like like I'm in another galaxy, and that's fantastic. That's you can't ask for much more out of that. Other things that like things that I'm going to talk about later on are just going to be nitpicks from what is already a fantastic piece of media. Just some like what I personally wish. But I still had a fucking awesome time watching this episode. I think there's so much to love, and we're gonna be in for a pretty cool last 2 episodes. I think so. I love it.
We finally traveled to a new galaxy far, far away. The pace on this episode slowed right down from what we were getting before, and I enjoyed it, but it did kind of really feel like, oh, we are setting you up for a banger final 2 episodes. This is the episode to take us there. What do you think, Adam?
So for the lack of Ahsoka front, I'll say it also didn't bother me because like we went into this series with the preconceived notion, like the understanding that this was going to be a continuation of Rebels, and Ahsoka is not very present in Rebels anyway. So like this isn't the kind of thing like Boba Fett where when he disappeared, not that I was enjoying that much of him being there anyway, but when he disappeared, I'm like, okay, this is stupid. Like for me, even the being away from her really makes sense. For this story. But no, I mean, I agree with you guys. It's definitely a slowdown like in pace, and it's very much like leaving the last little bit behind. A lot of people are talking about like, well, I think Anakin may have this like prominent role in the series going forward. Like we may see him a couple more times, something like that. Well, I think it feels to me like we're really closing the book on that, and like we're focusing on this new crew now. I think they have a lot to accomplish in these last 2 episodes, and I have a lot of questions as to where they're going to go from here. But just for this specific episode, I mean, I loved it. The slowdown in pace. We learn a lot about Balin, and it's somehow still I have more questions, which they've continued to do that throughout the course of the series, which the way they're handling that character is amazing. But overall, I really, really enjoyed the episode, and I'm super excited to see where we go from here.
It was a really fun one that continued the story, and that's why I didn't mind the lack of Ahsoka as well. I did kind of have this feeling throughout the entirety of the episode of like, no matter how bad this gets, I know Ahsoka's coming to save the day. And so it provided me a little bit of comfort as we are spending so much time with the antagonists. But another thing that it did is it introduced Peridia, the first planet of a new galaxy, and adding a ton of important Star Wars lore. From kind of eliminating the potential plot hole of why can't they just use the Purgle to get back? Why does Thrawn made a very poignant line of, just so you know, Miss Wren, as soon as my starship flies away, you will be trapped here forever. And it's because that is the end of the Purgo migration pattern. It's a graveyard. It's where they go to die. They don't know how to get back. They get there. They don't get back. They just get there as a final spot. It was the ancient homeworld of the Dathomiri, the Night Sisters from Dathomir. Their ancestors. This is where they came from, and we immediately get introduced to three of the great mothers, and we've been introduced to Mother Talzin in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, or was that Rebels? I don't. Now it's Clone Wars.
Clone Wars first, but
Yeah,
I believe she's. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to say that.
and more of them in
She
Rebels.
might appear in Rebels, but
Yeah,
I can't.
more of them in Rebels pop up
know.
when Maul brings Ezra back there. And so the Night Sisters of Dathomir are very prominent throughout Star Wars, but haven't been explored all that much. And now we are starting to see it. Mark, what did you think about this new planet that we got introduced to and all the Star Wars world building that came alongside of it?
I loved it. This is what I've been begging for from Star Wars for a few years now. And yes, there is still the presence of force wielders and lightsabers. Kind of my thing on social media. If people follow me, I'm like hashtag no more Jedi, no more Skywalkers. I don't want the focus to be on that. I want it to be on all this immense amount of other universe and the world building that you can do, like you alluded to, TJ. But even with force wielders still very prominent here, I love what they did here. I love the presence of this magic and witchcraft. Basically, we already have force magic. Now we have like magic that we're actually exploring here. So I love that they're doing that. I love that it's not too focused on them. They're there. They said their piece, and we're still focused a lot on Thrawn. And to allude back to what you were saying before, to what everyone was saying about the lack of Ahsoka in this episode, I also didn't mind it because I love Ahsoka as a character, but we knew what this series was going to be. We knew that the subplot was going to be the search for Ezra Bridger, that Thrawn was going to show up, and so she could have been involved in that, sure, but the fact that she wasn't, it's not a big deal. So I love that they're giving shine to other characters in a more organic way, as opposed to, like Adam was saying, with Book of Boba Fett, where Boba Fett's just gone from his own show and no one really cares. It was nice to see some of that other universe being explored.
Garrett, what did you think about the new planet that they introduced, the first aspect of this new galaxy that we see? What piece of lore kind of stood out the most to you? And I want to throw this question to the chat, actually, and hit us up on socials at Agents Fandom on Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else on what you think of this. But when Huyang and Rosario and Ahsoka were chatting, and he did his cool a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, they're referring to like these original stories, right? And they talked about like, yeah, there's 1, 2, and 3. 1 being the best, of course. Was that Rosario Dawson trying to be like, my favorite prequel is Phantom Menace? Is that what she was trying to throw in there? Was that a little subtle gag? Let me know what you guys think. But Garrett, what did you think of Peridia, this new planet, and all the Dathomirian lore that we got added?
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing the Night Sisters. That's such a cool piece of lore for if you're a fan of Clone Wars or Rebels, or if you've played any of the Jedi games. They certainly go into a lot more of the history there, traveling on Dathomir a lot. And I wish there was I guess it's a graveyard for whales, so I'm expecting a lot. But it felt like a normal Star Wars planet. And I'll speak to what Carlos said in chat. Like, did we even feel like we were in another galaxy? Not really. Not really at all. We just end up on this point that's essentially the exact same location as on Cetos. It's like the same altar type place. But that being said, it's so exciting to see the Night Sisters in action, or the mothers really, and to see like how their magic works. And something that's so fascinating to me is one of the biggest aspects of Thrawn's, we'll say defeat, but really it's just stalling him, is that he kind of underestimates the Force, and he doesn't expect this crazy play that Ezra pulls. Whereas this time, we see that now he is very much not taking that lightly. And in fact, he's forged a relationship with these Night Mothers who have a connection to the Force, and whether they're using like magic or not, they have a connection to the Force in some way. They're talking about, we lost the thread, you know, we've seen we've seen what's going to happen, but we don't know. It's like, you know, so we know there's a connection to the Force there. We know that he's wielding it now to his power, and that's going to make him so much more dangerous. And so that is kind of my favorite aspect of seeing the Night Sisters, is how Thrawn is going to utilize that to his advantage.
Can I just say that their line, "It reeks of Jedi," I was dying because it pans back over to Sabine and she's like, "Who, me?"
Yeah, it was literally like that can't be me. It's not me you're talking. It's these two fucks. Like I don't even know how to use.
Yeah,
this
it's more.
shit.
Yeah, it's more them for sure.
I love that, and because I honestly think like that might have been a bit of a misdirect to the Great Mothers too, of like, because she's in chains, it looks like she's probably the one that's throwing them off, but it could be these other two, because as we'll get into, they have their own plans for this new galaxy, etc. Adam, what did you think about the introduction to Peridia? What stood out the most for you?
Well, the first thing that I realized when we got there, like Garrett said, was just like, wait, this is the new galaxy. And then as we kind of moved through the episode, one of my thoughts was like, I guess I can see why they did it this way, because the focus is to like, they want to put the focus on Thrawn, not on the planet itself. And I feel like, and this may just be me doing some mental gymnastics to describe why the planet was pretty underwhelming, but I'm like, if we got there and he had built this ridiculous society, like this huge society with all this kind of stuff, like, or whatever was going on, like, even if it was just like a unique, some kind of more unique planet that we haven't been to like a bunch of times, maybe
Just
that
make
would
it a
have
different
been
color.
Yeah, I mean, there's
That's
a number of things.
We don't need him to have a whole society, but like,
Make the sky green, and it really just throw it with the Dathomir.
We could do something.
The Dathomir.
To the visuals, this wouldn't be a podcast with us on a planet if I didn't take my shot. Carlos is going to be proud of this one. If I didn't take my shot at the volume, because it looked fucking terrible again in this episode. Every time they're outside doing something, like the fights, it looks great in this fights. Very clearly defined little circle they're standing in. And then if you look at the background, it looks absolutely terrible all the time. Like, it's just, I have to take I know everybody in the chat's rolling their eyes, because I do this every time, and anytime the volume comes up, I have to take my shot. I'm a volume hater. It's well documented, but I don't know. Per the Night Sisters and the planet, all that stuff was cool. It's, again, one of those things I had a lot of questions about. Like, they seemed really familiar with like Morgan Elsbeth and them and kind of all the stuff they're going on. And I was like, obviously they haven't just been talking over the radio. So it's like, I'm interested to see how they were kind of expecting, like they knew they were coming and all this kind of stuff. Like, that it wasn't just this big surprise, like, oh, hey, you're here. Because unless they have like an interstellar radio, like I don't, or maybe they were communicating through the Force. Like, I don't know. That was kind of one of the big questions that I had coming out of it. But I mean, it was really cool. Like, I think they've got a lot of potential with the new galaxy stuff. Like, they didn't necessarily take advantage of it in this episode all that great, but like, hopefully they learn from this. And like, if we are going to be spending time in this other galaxy or other galaxies or whatever, that they do a little bit better job than they did here.
I honestly never even noticed the volume. I feel like I'm so trying to like, I'm bouncing back and forth between like action, subtitles, theories in my brain that I never even really noticed the rest of it. But let's talk about Thrawn, because that is the next big part here. We finally got the live action debut of Grand Admiral Thrawn, my favorite Star Wars villain. I think probably in the minority, but like, I find him scarier than Darth Vader. Darth Vader, although way more powerful and more evil, is emotional, and you can strategize against emotions, and you can play against somebody's emotions, but Thrawn is just a strategic mastermind, as we see throughout this episode. And something I feel like we'll talk more about in the future, but I thought the visuals were super cool, where when he's marching through, we're seeing all the troopers. The Kevin Kiner's score is just impeccable, and we see all these just battered down troopers led by Enoch, who, shout out to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, we got our own Enoch. This guy seems a lot scarier with his own little mask. I'm interested here to see if these are living people, if these were stormtroopers, or if these are literal zombies. Because we've seen Night Sister magic zombify people before. We saw Merrick. I think that was a loose thread that was purposeful, with Merrick just flashing off into green dust. I think these troopers might in fact be made of green dust as well. So everyone feel free to add your take on that one. But on top of that, I want to know, what did you think about the introduction to Thrawn? How do you think he sounded? I think he sounded perfect. How do you think he looked? He looked a little wonky. A lot of people complain about that. But guess what? Everything from Rebels looks wonky. You can't adapt the Rebels animation. They're all weirdly tall and skinny. Ahsoka's super duper tall and skinny. Thrawn's super duper tall and skinny. It just doesn't quite translate to live action the same way. The lightsabers, super duper tall and skinny. It doesn't translate to live action in the same way. Mark, what did you think about... I'll throw it to... Yeah, no, I'll throw it to Mark. We'll keep it with the guest first. Mark, what did you think about the introduction to Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Well, first and foremost, to speak to your point about the people squabbling over the look, I mean, you're never going to design a cartoon with the sense of, hey, in 15 years, 10, 15 years, if we, turn this into live action, how will this translate? Like, come on. Like, they're doing their best. As it comes to Thrawn, I actually feel like the reveal could have been a little bit more suspenseful. I mean, like, we knew he was showing up, but like you see like these shots of him from the side where you can tell it's him. I almost would have liked it if it was like just like a shot of like his feet or something, like he's walking, like you kind of like pan up a little bit more, and then finally you see his face. But that's like nitpicking. Again, I'm nitpicking kind of like Adam was with the volume.
That's just straight shots.
It was a cool reveal. Like the build up for this incredible villain. Like again, for any fan of the animation, any fan of Rebels, like this is an iconic character. He's actually been novelized too. Like there's an actual like full novel featuring Thrawn.
Multiple novels.
Yeah, multiple novels, exactly. So like this is like a
Trilogies, actually.
there we go. So I mean, this is someone who like newer fans of Star Wars, even like younger fans of Star Wars, have gotten to know. Probably more so than older fans. So I just love the fact that he's here in live action. It's obviously it is the same voice actor. I saw someone on Twitter going, it sounded like someone was trying to do an impression of the voice actor. Bitch, that is the voice actor. Like come on.
Yikes.
Ignorance is bliss.
It's like, oh man, like
Another one where it was like, I get that you want to keep the same voice actor, but like Thrawn is supposed to be this tall, imposing figure. You needed to get somebody else instead of Lars Mikkelsen, and Thrawn is canonically 6'3", and Lars Mikkelsen is 6'4".
it's like yeah, like
Google is right there, people, and it takes just a couple seconds. Just shut your mouths and Google first.
you just type in a few cues, before you send out a dumb tweet. Not the dumbest tweet that I saw this week, by the way. The dumbest tweet I saw this week had to do with geography. But we can talk about it off camera. But no, I love this reveal. There's another reveal that I loved even more later on that I'm sure we'll get to. But I love that Thrawn is here.
Thrawn is here. Garrett, what did you think about his introduction to the series, and how do you think he looked and sounded, and his presence?
I think, all right, well, I will be the defiler over here. I'll be the person on the other side. I do think they could have done a little bit better. And of course, I said this with Cad Bane, of course, when he came out. I'll be the bad guy, I will be. What is his hair? What is that hairline he's got going on? The hair was just bad. And it's just that it was a little bit flat. It was like a little bit one-dimensional. Like they could have done some prosthetic work and jutted out some parts that would have made it, and not even like anything egregious, but just like a little bit. And I think it would have made. Obviously, he doesn't have to match the animation in Rebels, but like that's far from his conception. He's the heir to the Empire novels were like after the original trilogy, so they're old work, and he's been around for a while, and he has a very like distinct angular face. Like the Chiss have a very angular face, and so I feel they could have done a little bit better job doing that. Obviously, he's a little bit puffy, but I'm not going to expect Lars Mikkelsen to get like ripped, so didn't bother me at all. Also, he's been on this other galaxy
We
planet
don't
for
know what
10
the
years, so
caloric
I'm
intake of their nutrients over there
yeah,
are.
yeah, that's
They might
exactly.
have junk food there.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna fuss over that. But his face, it wasn't perfect, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over it at the end of the night because Lars Mikkelsen is perfect in the role. Like if you are saying anything otherwise, then you simply are not watching because the brilliance of Thrawn, as TJ alluded to earlier, isn't in his strength, it's in his smarts and it's in the way he carries himself. He is nice, like you see, he lets Sabine go. Nice is maybe not the right word. Noble and strategic. He lets Sabine go, but obviously he has a plan for that afterwards. But it's not just in his like obvious actions; it's in his subtle actions and the way Lars Mikkelsen actually carries the character. And that's why I kind of disagree with you, Mark. I like the camera angles that they pulled because it allows you to see some stuff that he does that really is what makes Thrawn so intimidating. And so I think he's perfect in the role, and that carries way more weight to me than how his face looks. And like you said, TJ, the voice is phenomenal. I believe Lars Mikkelsen actually said, something to the effect of like, obviously when you're voice acting, you have to carry this different weight to your voice because you're carrying it. It's just audio, that you can't have. There's no emotions to convey that. Whereas if you do that same kind of acting in a live action setting, it comes off campy or not like what you want. So he had to dial back the voice a little bit and find the balance between the voice acting and the live action. I think he does a phenomenal job. He carries himself incredibly, and it's really cool to see his Star Destroyer, the Chimera, in live action as well. So I was very, very excited with this reveal.
That was one of the things this episode did well is with the slowed down pace, it was utilized well. It allowed you to do this slow, large panning on the Chimera and just like give the full scope of Thrawn's army. I'm also curious if I'm the only one who thought this, but as he's walking up, Morgan Elsbeth was looking at him like a long lost lover. She was looking at him like, my husband, my love, you have returned. I have found you. Like, Adam, did you get those similar vibes? And what did you think of Thrawn's introduction?
Personally, I didn't pick up on that, but I
saw it, bro.
I wasn't paying that much attention. I'd have to go back and rewatch. Like I was so focused on Thrawn that I didn't see her. So I'd have to go back and give that a rewatch because if that's the case, that's actually hilarious. Because he did not reciprocate that to her at all in this episode. So if that is the case and they did have some kind of fling going on, I think he has long since moved past it, and she might still be harboring some old feelings, which is pretty funny. But as far as like the Thrawn stuff, well, I mean, it's awesome. You guys hit on everything perfectly. I'll just say, I definitely the bone structure could have been a little bit better in the face, like Garrett said. It's one of those things. If he didn't just look like a blue Elon Musk,
Elon Musk was killing me.
I saw that.
Bit of work on the like as soon as he popped up, I was like, oh man, I know this. They did all this like long ago. They couldn't have known the entire world would hate. Like Elon would be just like the hate. Like, everybody in the world like hates him now, like as they should. He's an idiot. But it's like I'm watching that and I'm like, oh man, like I just wish we could have given him a little bit of a CG or a VFX like uplift or something in the face. Because when I'm watching, I go back and look at the.
I think it could have been prosthetic. Honestly, I think it wouldn't have.
Yeah,
obviously, I don't do makeup, so what the fuck do I know?
And I think this is honestly, I agree with everything you guys have said, and I also think it will be improved by the time he's a main villain for a movie. I think I feel like I'm one of the people who actually liked the look of the old Thanos better. I liked the purple and how he looked in the Avengers post-credit scene better than how he ended up looking in Infinity War. But I understand objectively how that was like a more impressive, better look. And I think we're going to see that with Thrawn once he's getting Star Wars movie budget put into his makeup and prosthetics, I think he's going to look a lot better.
Yeah,
You think his Star Destroyer was made by SpaceX?
I think the budget argument is a little bit of a cop out based on that it's
Yeah, no,
Lucasfilm
it's
and
not an
Disney.
excuse,
I
but I
feel like
think
it's
it'll
more.
improve.
I think it will improve, but I don't think we can associate it with budget. I think we got to say it'll be associated with backlash if it improves.
Mark, he better hope that it's not manufactured by SpaceX, or he's not leaving the galaxy like he told Sabine that he is. He's stuck where he is.
They're all straight.
Kaboom!
by SpaceX. But one thing I'll add one more thing that I thought they captured so well is like, and it adds to this menacing presence of Thrawn that you guys have been talking about. He is so soft spoken, but it doesn't take anything. Like so often there's this criticism for, and like very valid criticism for male villains. They're so loud, they're screaming, they're like to be intimidating. Like I've never even heard Thrawn like really raise his voice that much. Like I know in the final few episodes of Rebels, he gets a little angry and stuff like that. But it's like here, like another like a like a person who's less familiar with this character, if they would have brought somebody in that they felt like was more resembling, like I just don't think there's anybody that can. I mean, like the voice is perfect. You close your eyes, like and literally you could convince yourself that you're watching an episode of Rebels when he's talking. I mean, like I know it's the same person, but I mean, it was just like a 1-for-1. Like he pulled that same voice right out of the booth, like the recording booth. But it's just there's something really really special about that. Like I feel like you guys said to this point of like he's a much more scary villain. Like I'm gonna say if I'm gonna be in a war and like I know I'm never gonna have to be in the same room with this person, I don't want to be like I'll take Darth Vader. Now if I know at some point in this war battle whatever that I'm gonna have to be in the same room, I'm probably gonna take Thrawn because like Vader is a little more menace. Like to be in the same room with Vader's a little more menacing, but that's one of those like Vader's not going to win you the war as we've seen like a bunch of times, but Thrawn is going to win the war like every time unless there's factors in play that he can't conceive of, like that he can't factor into his plan. And it's just like I hope they do improve upon the look a little bit, but I think this is a great start. Like things could have been way way worse than this, and overall, like even the few minor nitpicks here that I have, like overall didn't bother me. For me, it was like the reception was much more positive for me personally.
I have a question for you guys. We're talking about how like menacing and how smart Thrawn is, which is totally 100% true and true to his character. However, this is a genuine question. I was wondering myself if this is a plot hole because to me it seems thus.
Ooh.
Let's hear it.
He talks to I believe it's Morgan Elsbeth at one point talking about Ahsoka, saying like tell me everything about her home planet, her whatever, her master. Are we really supposed to assume that he doesn't know who her master is? Because he knows Anakin. He's met Anakin canonically, and he, I would assume, knows Darth Vader. So,
Did he ever meet Ahsoka in Rebels though?
I believe so. Right?
If they didn't meet, he knows for sure about her because the Fulcrum stuff is
Yeah.
like a very big, like it just seemed very weird to me that he like is so like
Well,
Out of touch.
the
Yeah,
one
I kind of took it as more of just like a name, address. Give me this all on a piece of paper so I can make my plan.
that doesn't seem like Thrawn though. Thrawn is a very I know
Yeah.
everything, I have it all. I'm gonna do the plan here, and then once we're 8 steps into the plan, you guys are gonna know the first 3 steps, and then that's kind of how it works. So I don't know. It just seemed very off character to me.
It does seem unlike him to just like approach in the terms of approaching somebody and being like, hey, can you tell me this, and this about this? Because he's one of those people that if he's going to acquire information, he's not just going to walk up to somebody and ask. Like he's going to wait for that opportunity to where like I'll give you this or this or this, and like then you're going to owe me, and then I'll be able to cash in on this because he's so strategic about every single thing he does. So I will say, in the point of like walking right up to somebody and be like, hey, tell me this and this and this about her. That's like a little like off.
Yeah, but we've established that she wants him, so I mean, like she's gonna give him what he wants.
Here's kind of how I took it because they did a great job of showing us his typical strategic militants. Sabine comes. Oh, how nice it is to see a familiar face. Go find your friend. Go die. And I'm going to send these former Jedi there, so hopefully they can go die too and kill themselves. Because the one thing I struggle to factor into my plans, I always have, is how Force users can impact the plan. And so he's been here over his 10 plus years, whatever it is, formulating this plan as to how he's going to get home. And then the Great Mothers say, we missed the thread. Like, Ahsoka is riding the space whales here. This was not supposed to happen. She was supposed to be dead. And so that was kind of my thought processes, was like, that was his quick flaw in the plan. I need to recalculate. Kind of similar how you see just very on occasion he loses his composure, like that one scene in Rebels where I don't remember what the guy's complaining about. Why can't we just blow this up? And he loses it on him. He grabs him and he lifts him up in the air, and then he puts him down, dusts off his shoulders, and goes, my apologies. Now, I understand not everyone has the same appreciation for art as I do. It was just like, it was one of those moments of like, this didn't, like, what? This didn't go to my plan. What do you mean she's on her way here? And so I think it was just a fuck up.
It could be. It could be, because think too, he has zero clue what's up with Ezra. Like, and that could have
That's
theoretically
what I
just,
thought was odd.
yeah, like that could have theoretically been like, oh well, he just wants her to go on a wild goose chase and is not too concerned with what's happened to Ezra. But I think legitimately he lost connection with Ezra, and well, he's probably dead. Well, no, like, he's resourceful. He's a Force user. Like, he's taking care of himself. He's with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles out there in that weird corner of the planet. So, like, he might just have a blind spot when it comes to Force users.
Then again, I just like thinking this through, trying to look at it from every angle. Why kill Ezra? What if the people who arrive first are the people looking for him? Well, then it's more useful to be able to dish Sabine over there instead of have them kind of coming at him, type of thing. So I guess he was kind of seeing it the same way that Balin did when he kept Sabine, using that promise. And before we get to Sabine, I want to talk about Balin and Shin Hati specifically. And Adam, I want to throw this one to you first, so that you don't keep getting screwed over with it's everybody said everything. But you've had such great points about Balin Skoll through the course of this series as well. And I feel like each episode, he's an onion, and we're just peeling more and more layers back. In this one, there was a couple really important lines to me. One of them toward the end, him saying to Shin, I've trained you to be more than a Jedi. You're not like Ezra. Ezra got trained by a Jedi to be a Jedi after the fall of the Jedi Order. You got trained by a former Jedi to be more. And he expands more on how this galaxy is the key to his fresh start of breaking the cycle of war and violence. What do you think his ultimate end goal is, and what do you think of his character?
So the end goal thing, I thought that was really interesting, but it was kind of funny to me when he said that, because like as soon as he said it, I was like, okay, well, you failed, because like we already know what's coming. Like you don't stop the cycle here, which like I don't have a problem with that, because like Star Wars is constantly in this era filling in gaps and doing things. So like I don't hold them too much for like, oh, I know this and that like happened, so I'm not going to hold that against them. But what was so fascinating to me about that particular his particular line and what he wants to do, like break this cycle. I want to get us out of this cycle, because like I'm tired of we're doing the same thing over and over again. And I've been making Norse mythology references on this podcast throughout the show with these two characters. That particular instance reminds me so much, and this is not a good comparison for those of you that have played like God of War Ragnarok and like know these things, like reminds me of Odin and his quest to stop Ragnarok. Like we have to, like, I need to like recover this knowledge because I have to break this like cycle. We're in the same cycle. And then in his pursuit of these things, like he causes the very thing that he's so actively trying to avoid. And I think Balin may be headed towards something similar. I had a conversation on Twitter with this about Thomas Rochester, we had on, I believe in one of our primer episodes. And he was asking me something about like, what do you think about is one like the color, like what's the significance with the color? And if you look up like anything, obviously Skoll is the wolf that chases the sun, and Skoll in like many drawings and stuff is always orange. And Hati chasing the moon is always blue. Now, what do we know? Like both of their lightsabers are orange right now. And Hati is like a wolf that is blue. So I'm like, is there a chance here for some kind of redemption?
And what color
that was
is Ahsoka?
Right, it's white, exactly.
Orange
so it's
and
like
blue. as other colors too.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it's like I'm thinking. My first thought was like, obviously, I've been thinking like maybe there's a chance for Balin to get some kind of like redemption going in him, because it seems like almost really obvious that he's not going to do this bad thing. But then I'm like, I wonder if they're leading us in this misdirection. Like they've been trying to tell us all these things about Balin throughout the series, but when it comes down to it, like he's going to be so obsessed with his own quest that he turns his apprentice against him and he fucks himself over, and then like Shin has to step in and do something. Like I don't know. The two of them are just so fat. Like I feel like I could watch each of these episodes and pick up something new.
Oh,
on the two of them.
I feel like Shin's on her way to a redemption arc. I do feel that way.
That's how I feel right
I'm
now.
getting the vibes on that, which I am fucking in for, by the way.
Absolutely. I mean, Shin's great. Yeah, I'm all in for a Shin redemption arc. But like, I do think the parallels there with like the Ragnarok, like Odin chasing Ragnarok, to me were incredibly apparent there. And I think we could be set up for Balin, like being so obsessed with his quest that he ends up causing the thing that he's so actively trying to avoid. I think that's where we're headed for these two characters.
I love how they're a direct foil for Ahsoka and Sabine, where Ahsoka is this light Jedi who hates the rules of the Jedi Temple and the Jedi Order. And you see Balin, he says, like, I don't miss the Order. I miss the idea of what it could have stood for, but it was never orchestrated that way. And it's the same ideals as Ahsoka, but on the dark side. And then there's Shin, who is being trained to be more than a Jedi, much like Sabine. She's not being trained in the same way that most Jedi have been trained. And so I really like how they parallel each other, they mirror each other there. And it's going to be interesting to see where they get taken. Garrett, what do you think about these two as kind of the story's main antagonists? Now Thrawn's been introduced. Where do they go from here?
Yeah, I think they're so compelling. My eyes are locked in anytime they're on the screen, and I am just itching to learn more about them. I think, given the fact that they're on the route to being ditched in another galaxy, I think it's possible there's a switch up coming. I think definitely, like Adam said, Shin's got a redemption arc coming. I felt that. And I agree that Balin might be causing what I think, Adam, you said that perfectly. I'm just so in for that idea. And you and I have been talking privately about all the Norse references, so I think that if there's nothing to that besides Dave Filoni's obsession with wolves, then maybe we're just crazy. But I do hope to see something there, and I imagine they're all going to have to work together to get back somehow if they do get stranded. It's interesting that Thrawn knew so much about Balin, and that Balin knew so much about Ezra, and also the theory of Boken Jedi, I think, was really cool. Like the Jedi that are trained by Jedi but separate from the Jedi Order, like rogue kind of Jedi. So that was, I like that has like a distinction now. So yeah, anytime, and Ray Stevenson is just so incredible in the role that it's your eyes are just glued to the screen anytime he's on it. So I can't wait to see more.
And what's the one thing we haven't seen? I just want to add one more thing real quick too. What's the one thing we haven't seen? Balin hasn't snapped yet. He's just been so, like, we've even seen Shin in her fight with like Sabine and stuff snap and get really upset. Like Balin has been so calm and collected, and I feel like in this next episode we might see something where Shin's like, they're literally trying. If we don't leave, we're gonna get stranded here. And he snaps and is like, "No, like this is our one chance. We're so close. We're right here. We just have to do it." And then he does he does what we're talking about. He ends up alienating himself from the group, and it probably will cost him his life. I think we're gonna see some bad stuff from Balin in this next episode.
Something that I find very interesting about his perspective, and there's clearly still a missing puzzle piece. They're searching for some ancient power that seems to have maybe something to do with the Night Sisters. To help them restart whatever they're looking for. It sounds like it has maybe even something to do with the World Between World, the way he wants to go back and stop a cycle. But what I find really interesting, and Dave Filoni is not good at hiding his cards. Dave Filoni has a shitty poker face. If Dave Filoni's playing poker and he's got pocket aces, he's gonna be giggling under that little cowboy hat. Exactly. And he has an interview years ago, and he goes, "You guys want to know where Ezra is? I'll tell you where Ezra is. He's in a galaxy far, far away." And then what's, of course, this episode title? It's titled Far, Far Away. And there's a interview of Freddie Prinze Jr., who was the voice of Kanan Jarrus in Star Wars Rebels.
R.I.P.
And he says he's very passionate about this. He says, like, Star Wars fans are always like arguing with me, but they're wrong. This came to me directly from Dave Filoni. It's from his mouth. And it's about how the Force acts and how Baylan likes to talk about the inevitability of the war, and then the light winning, and then the Empire rising, and then the Jedi overthrowing them, and then a new darkness rising. And that's because that's how Filoni described that to Freddie Prinze Jr. as how the Force always works. If darkness rises, the light will be born. There was a mass amount of power in the darkness when Darth Vader went to the dark side. Padme dies and he goes full darkness. All the Jedi die. And so he didn't just have one baby, he had two. He had twins, because that was the rising power of the light coming to counteract the darkness. And they'll always balance each other out. And it was interesting how that very much seemed to be Baylan's perspective here of, this is always going to keep happening. I need to make a major cosmic change to stop it. Mark, what do you think about that theory and Baylan and Shin Hati's journey?
Well, first and foremost, Baylan is my favorite character in this whole series. I love Baylan. Ray Stevenson, rest in peace, to an absolute legend, just a tremendous character actor. Everything that he's in, he's just so good. But I don't view Baylan as a villain. I really don't. I think that he is...
Antagonist, not villain.
What's that?
Antagonist, not villain. That's
Right.
how I like to see him.
I would agree with that, because I do think he has a lot of like gray Jedi qualities to him, where, you know, showing that much mercy to Sabine, like I thought it was a trick. Like I still was, even though I had gotten a decent sense of who he was, I was like, okay, this is some sort of a trick. And it's like, no, he's like, hey, just come with me, find your friend. Like he's not acting like a Sith. He's not a Sith, really, in my opinion.
If he is a villain, he's a reluctant villain, because he feels like his cause is just, and like he did not want to fight Ahsoka. What he says is a waste.
Yeah. So I do agree that I think he's a little naive. And like Adam had mentioned before, he is going. I think that this is leading to a bad end for Baylan, unfortunately. And I think it has a lot to do with his naivety. He should not have trusted Thrawn by any means. That was definitely a mistake. But he, I think, viewed him as a means to an end. He has his quest, and unfortunately, I do think it's going to maybe lead to his downfall. But we'll see what happens there. But I think that he really is a scene stealer. And that's, anytime Ray Stevenson is in something or was in something, he always stole the show. So I look forward to seeing how he does in these final couple episodes.
I agree with you 100%. He views Thrawn as a means to an end, and we still don't know the exact reason. We still don't exactly know what his end is, but we know he wants the world to burn so that he can find a way to restart it better from the first place. He lets Sabine go. They go traveling after them, so we're obviously going to get our big lightsaber showdown, which is going to be really exciting because it's probably going to have something to do with Ezra getting tossed a lightsaber and going to work. We'll get to see Amon Esfandi, what he does, and I still am hoping that Sabine gives Ezra back his lightsaber, and then Sabine ends up building whatever the new Darksaber becomes, and she wields it as she leads the Mandalorians. That's what I want to happen. It should have been you all along, Sabine. You're more you were more suited for it than Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan had too much trauma in her decision making. You were just ready to lead a new world. But that's a Rebels podcast. That's not an Ahsoka podcast. Sabine had her own fun little quest. We do get to see those who have watched Rebels, we get to see how much she has grown through the years. How the Sabine we know is just always used to be so quick to temper, so quick to be frustrated when things don't go her way. And while she starts getting that way, she is a lot better at calming herself down than she used to be. I think probably kudos to the Jedi training from Ahsoka, and it allows her to bond with these dog wolf things. I forget what their names are, but it was
Howlers.
Howlers. Yeah, it was really cute the way she was interacting with them. They were giving her little kisses, just like Obi-Wan's giving to me right now. And they run away from the fight, then come back just like a little dog. I thought that was cute. And then, as Mark called them, the little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Peridia, I called them the little Franklins. You remember that show? Hey, it's Franklin. Maybe is that just a Canadian show, or is that Mark?
No, I remember Franklin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a little guy with clothes. That's what they reminded me of there. And so, classic Ewok-esque little Star Wars cute creatures. They knocked that out of the park basically every time.
And
That
we
was
got to see the
definitely-
classic baby of the species too.
Yeah.
That's just 10 times more adorable than the adults. Oh my god, I was a big fan of the Noti creatures. Though there was one scene that I don't know if it was just a perspective thing, but there's one of them that like camera pans up and he's like sitting atop one of the huts and it just looked like a human.
I always find it so funny when it just like you have like an animalistic creature where it's like they just say this one thing. They're just like they just say this one thing over and over again. Then you see someone like Chewbacca where it's like he's never going to use human vocabulary. And then one of those little things just goes, Ezra Bridger! And just out of nowhere pops his little name in there. But then it finally came time, the reveal of Ezra Bridger with a big-ass beard. No, they have no razors on Peridia. He's got the long hair just like he did from early on in the Rebels series. I feel like as soon as he shaves that beard, he's going to have like a nice, classic Rebels early season look. Unless maybe he keeps a little goatee like Kanan. Adam, what did you think of the reveal of Ezra Bridger, and how do you think Amon Esfandi did? Because this isn't the same voice actor. This was a new guy.
He did incredible. And now Garrett and I were talking about this earlier in the week that I said like I actually had reservations about him. You know, and we'd seen very little, but it was more just like from what we see in like the first episode or whatever, like I was a little hesitant. And then as soon as he pops up here, I was surprised. I don't know why I was expecting him to be well groomed on this planet. But and then as soon as I see him, I'm just like, I just melted like into a puddle. And then him and Sabine started talking, and I'm like, this is fucking Ezra Britt. Like, I don't know if this dude just watched like watched our Rebels over and over and over and over again, like in preparation for this. But I mean, he absolutely knocked it out of the park. Like, I just can't wait to see. He has got for the grooming thing, like you were talking about, he has to like, there has to be a scene where he's like looking in the mirror, like. I'm trying to keep my expectations low. As you can tell, I'm excited about this. But what I'm hoping, as soon as I saw that, I start thinking like I'd love in the beginning of next episode or the finale or whenever they decide to do it, when he's going to be shaping up his beard and his hair or something. We get like some kind of flashback or whatever. That's like nobody wants Kanan to come back like after what happened to him at the end of Rebels. That would just be like one of the biggest character assassinations to bring him back and like undo that. But I don't know if there's any, maybe that would be a surprise. Star Wars is pretty good, like at hiding these surprises that come in the end. Like maybe they do have like a live action actor to play Kanan. And I would love for him, like I can just see the transition of like, he's looking in the mirror and like right as he's like shaped his face up to look like exactly like the goatee and the like short in his hair. And then we flash over to like Kanan in that same moment. And then like a younger Ezra, like, am I playing a younger Ezra? Oh my God. Like I'm not going to get my hopes up that something like that's going to happen, but like he was incredible. And I can't wait to see what he does like in these final 2 episodes. Like I wish we had gotten to see him a little bit earlier. Now it makes perfect sense for the story they've been telling, like for him to show up here and now. Like I don't think there was really an opportunity with this story for him to be in episode 4 or 5 or whatever, because I think that kind of cheapens the reveal here, but there's going to be some really cool shit coming because Ezra's awesome, and like we're gonna get that. We have to get that lightsaber throw moment or whatever. Him doing the fight. They're gonna get into it, and it's gonna be crazy, man. These last few episodes are gonna be awesome. Ezra's great. We fucking love Ezra.
I mean, Star Wars has always had these great, incredible moments, and I mean, honestly, lately they've done a pretty good job of like checking off bucket list Star Wars moments. Things for me, like getting to see Anakin and Ahsoka in live action. Qui-Gon's Force Ghost in Obi-Wan, and getting to see Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson interact together again as older men. So many different moments like that they give us. Ahsoka and Luke talking to each other, and Ahsoka telling Luke that he reminds her of his dad. So many things like that have just been like gifts. But there are a few things left that haven't happened yet that could really just ruin me. And it's Gary, you just nailed it in chat. Freddie Prinze Jr. coming back as a Force ghost and talking to Ezra, saying, "Hey, can you train my son?" Like something like that would just absolutely fucking melt me.
Yeah, they have to be apprentice and master. That's just the only. Who else is going to train Jason? I mean, Ahsoka's busy on her path with Sabine, and Luke's doing his own thing with his failed monstrosity of a Jedi Order. So it's gotta be Ezra. They can be Boken Jedi and honor Kanan's legacy. And yeah, we got to get a Freddie Prinze Jr. Force Ghost as Kanan. That's just a mandatory.
He seems like he's been adamant that he doesn't want to ever come back, but Liam Neeson said that too. Like, people say that, and when the bag gets thrown their way,
the Disney
money
check,
talks and bullshit walks. That's what at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Is that just what he wants everyone to think?
Right, exactly.
Garrett, what do you think of Amon Esfandi's performance and Ezra's kind of calm, cool, collected, confident attitude?
Yeah, I think he's just incredible in the role, and I told Adam this, like, I don't know, weeks ago now, that I was just confident that he was going to nail the part just as much as Natasha Bordizzo nails Sabine, and that turns out to be the case in this episode. I'll be the guy to rain on the parade, though. As much as I think Amon Esfandi did an incredible job as Ezra, I think the reunion a little bit lackluster, if I'm going to be 1,000% honest.
I'm glad you said it.
I think after 10 years, after a long time, after literally traveling across the galaxy, not enough excitement is going on, honestly, between both of them. But I think what's more troubling is it ends with Ezra being like, "All right, everyone, pack up, let's go on the way." But like, Sabine knows the entire time, like, "Hey, we're fucked. We're like, I might be here now, but we are still just as stranded as you were before I got here." And not once does that ever come up. Like, there's no, like, he's like, "We won, right?" Like, "We won, right?" And like, all he gets is like, "Yeah, we won." But like a lot of shit has happened, dude. Like, I am a Jedi now. I am training with Ahsoka. We go through none of this. It's just like, yeah.
The circumstances are why that's the case, though, for me. Is I agree, like, from a cinematic standpoint, it would have been great for, like, Ezra Bridger is here. He definitely didn't get the same entrance that Thrawn had. But I think when you view it from the sense of Sabine, she's actively trying to hide this shit from him. She just wants to hug her friend before she reveals, "Hey, you know how you sacrificed everything to keep Thrawn away? Well, I'm actually bringing him back home, and we need to hurry our asses up so we can hopefully not die and go with them." Not really an easy conversation. Then you view it from Ezra's perspective, and he's like, he sees her. She knows she's coming, right? And he's like, "This is the girl I've loved forever. She used to view me as like a little baby brother and like not old enough, right? But like, look at me with my beard now, right? I help out all these little turtle babies. What's up, Sabine? Hey, that's an Ezra move. That's an Ezra move right there."
I agree, and so my biggest takeaway from that was like, how cool is Ezra here? Like, he's been waiting for this for so long, and he just like, took you so long, babe? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I love that from him. And it was more on Sabine's side where I'm like, come on, like you have been like this has been on your mind since we first saw you. Like this is what you have been building up for. You wanted to see him again so badly, and you kind of, I'm like, oh, it was kind of awkward. I'm like, come on, you should have been a little bit more excited. So I loved the Ezra reveal, but then to Garrett's point, the actual reunion, I'm like, oh, like I feel like she should have been a little bit more into it.
It just felt lackluster to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we've been literally waiting for it since, the end of Rebels, and it's just like, yeah, it's a great moment. It just wasn't, I don't know. It's just how I feel
The
about Thrawn's
reunion,
look,
yeah.
I guess. Like, I'm okay with his look because Lars Mikkelsen's performance is like incredible, but like at the end of the day, I wish it was more, and that's kind of how I feel about the reunion as well.
I agree 100% that it was lackluster. I just think it was almost purposefully lackluster, maybe, and maybe they didn't do a great job of it. But to show kind of Sabine as like she finally gets what she wants and realizes I fucked up.
So what now?
Yeah, like oh, I fucked up. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it definitely like for those of us hoping for like a Ezra Bridger is here. They definitely gave that with Thrawn, but not quite with Ezra. But one thing they did really do this episode to me is it's like we talked about how Ahsoka learned from some of the good things Andor has done and really seemed to give it specific arcs. For Andor, it was every 3 episodes. For Ahsoka, it seems to be every 2. 2 to 3. And this, to me, very much felt like an episode of let's show you where everybody's at, but it's Act 3 next. It is Act 3 next, and we're gonna get some fights. We're gonna get some suspense. How are they gonna get home? It's a race against the clock. But Ahsoka's still coming to save the day, and they're gonna throw in all of these different factors.
She's walking into a shitstorm, by the way.
He's walking into a shitstorm, and Balin and Shin have their own agendas that we don't fully know about yet. It truly, truly felt like, to me, that it felt the most like a Rebels episode. This episode felt the most like a Rebels episode because it felt like all right, here's the shitstorm. Thrawn has been introduced, and now that Thrawn's here, none of their little plans are going to work anymore. But somehow they're going to always find a way to come out with it. And that's what this felt like. It was like, oh shit, the deck's stacked against them. Their backs are against the wall. Ahsoka's going to come in, hopefully save the day. But it seems like a really impossible situation, and the Rebels are going to have to find their way out. And that's what I really liked about it.
And not only that, but we're going to have to go back to that New Republic storyline also. I hate to break it to everyone.
Oh, don't even. I'm going to throw up.
I don't think we are.
Oh.
You don't think we? So now that's
they have to.
Yeah.
They have.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be more mad if they don't at all.
Yeah.
I think the Purgle absolved it. They were pissed, and then the Purgle proved that Hera and Ahsoka were right, and so that will then grant approval to their mission.
I don't know about that.
Nobody knows.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can
Yeah,
admit that they were wrong. They have to.
They sent after them knows.
The New Republic has to go on as if they did nothing wrong, and like they have to, because they can't admit that. Oh shit. She was right, and we should have given her the resources from the beginning. So now they have to just stay on course. Also,
Mon Mothma, that is exactly how Mon Mothma is.
Where is Zeb? We cannot finish this series without Zeb. So we have to go back to the New Republic storyline. I'm dreading it because everything else is so much cooler.
I think it'll be a simple, like, the fleet is going to return and be like, shit, guys, the Purgle just transferred Ahsoka to another galaxy. Hera was right. And then all the senators are gonna be like, no, this is stupid. We must strip her rank. And Mon Mothma is gonna go, no, the fleet is right. I am Chancellor. Fuck you guys.
That's not how
get us the fuck back to the other story is what I'm gonna be going. Like, oh my god.
I know that's not how it works, but that's how they're gonna do it.
Because is that how politics works in Canada?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody here in America takes account.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can't start that political war.
Let's see, which place does politics work better, Mark? Which one of us has free health care? But we're going to be back talking about where these stories go in the next 2 weeks. Episode 7 of Ahsoka, we're going to be breaking down with our friend from comicbook.com, co-host of Phase Zero, and co-host of the brand new Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 10-year anniversary podcast, Love in the something of Hydra. I messed up the name, but new Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 10-year anniversary podcast. Jamie Durack is joining us to talk episode 7, so make sure you tune in next week. We got lots of Ahsoka content coming, more TIFF reviews from Aisha and Ryan dropping all the time, and of course our good friend, fellow agent Ethan Simi is currently at the New York Film Festival, watching some movies there. He's going to have reviews coming. I have the Saskatchewan Expo coming this weekend, where I will be moderating my very first panel and getting to meet Nolan North, doing a fun interview there, the voice of Nathan Drake, and so many other great things. Make sure you hit us with that like button if you're watching us on YouTube, and also make sure you subscribe to the Agents of Fandom wherever you get your podcasts. Nice 5-star rating. Check out all the other pods on the Agents of Fandom network, including Listen 3000, Fandom Academy, Ticket to Reality, Cinema Sibs once the strike is over, as well as our YouTube shows, The Critics, and Damon's Comic Corner, as he is crushing it as always. We're going to get some great content over there after New York Comic Con in a few weeks, as he has lots of comic writers and creators and artists he's planning on talking to there. Adam, did I miss anything in terms of upcoming content?
No, I mean, I'll just plug I got two two shows and reviews coming out that I'm very, very excited about that I can't talk about yet. One of them being Gen V, latest spinoff in the Boys universe, which I would just kill for like 5 minutes on right now, but unfortunately I can't yet. But keep an eye out next Wednesday for a review on that, and then also next Friday, Lessons in Chemistry, starring Brie Larson. Not a Marvel's prequel, but like you can maybe talk me into it. You know, a little Brie Larson action. It's definitely really, really. I don't think I can talk about that either. Let me just shut up. But just keep your eye out to Agents of Fandom next week for both of those things. Very, very excited for that. For me personally, and then we got everybody on the team writing, crushing it, killing it as always. So Loki stuff coming up too. Everybody keep an eye out for that. I mean, I could go on and on, but yeah, team's great. Just check the website every day. If you're not checking the website every day, I don't know what you're doing.
Exactly, and Sex Education now streaming on Netflix,
Right.
And we got Millie's review up on the website there as well. Garrett, thank you for tuning in back-to-back weeks. It was great to see you again, and man, we've been waiting for this. I'm so happy you got a chance to hop back in while we were still doing Ahsoka, because ever since this show's gotten announced, we've been sitting here waiting like, I can't wait for the weeks that we get to talk about Ahsoka on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been something that we've been waiting to talk about for a long time. I'm sorry I left you alone for most of it, but not for all of it, buddy. I couldn't do that for you. I had to, and who knows? Maybe there's more in the future.
Hopefully. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Where can the people find you on socials? And are you too busy right now to keep the hockey pod going, or is the Snipe and Zelly pod still running strong?
Snipe and Sally is coming back for this upcoming hockey season, so very excited for that. You can find me usually talking puck or any other random musings on Twitter or X or whatever Elon's calling it these days, at Mark Pacelli 13. That is Piselli.
I would genuinely trust Grand Admiral Thrawn to run Twitter better than Elon Musk. As evil as he is, I think Musk might be more evil. I don't know. Thrawn might be more moral.
One of them is definitely more strategic. Let's just say
Yeah,
that.
well, one's an idiot. The only thing they look alike in live action. That's about the only thing that they really have in common. But thank you so much to everyone, not only who joined us in this episode in the Twitch chat, on YouTube after the fact, listening in podcasts, but everyone who's been here with us along the way. This team writing and creating content with us that has changed from a team to a family. It has improved all of our lives so much. We are so proud, grateful, thankful for each and every one of you, and all of those that support us. Sorry?
All of our guests too.
All our guests who have hopped on the pod, from Chris Killian, our very first one, to everyone who has joined us multiple times along the way. And everyone who has supported us, whether you've bought a shirt, listened to the podcast, retweeted a tweet, liked an Instagram post, whatever it is, thank you so much. It means the world to us. We wouldn't be here without you. But we will be back next week talking episode 7 of Ahsoka with Jamie Durack from comicbook.com. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Peace.